Well, good morning and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folare. Yesterday, we all were witness. It was live. We heard the presentation of a groundbreaking budget talking about the Lagos State's 2023 appropriation bill that was, presented by the governor and laid before the Lagos State House of Assembly by Governor Sanwo-Olu. It's a budget of continuity, and we have with us here the Lagos State Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, Mr. Samuel Egube. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Yori.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you. Now, as I was saying, I imagine you people in there are probably as excited as those who listen to the governor present it live. It's well, I don't think anybody has gone as high as 1.692 trillion yet. You're not trailing anybody, are you?
No, we never trail people.
Okay, so we'll come to talk about that. But first of all, let's take a background package that our Bimba Babajide did, and then we'll come back in studio and talk with the Honorable Commissioner.
Just like past traditions, the hallowed chambers of the Lagos State House of Assembly was filled to capacity amid fanfare.
Come 2023. Sanwo-Olu
Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu kicked off his core task for the day, highlighting the impact his administration has made in various sectors of the state's economy in the last 3 years. Governor Sanwo-Olu then swiftly proceeded to the presentation of a budget estimate of 1.692 trillion to the lawmakers for the new fiscal year, christened Budget of Continuity.
The 2023 appropriation bill expresses our unwavering determination to keep serving the good people of Lagos through our team's developmental agenda. We are indeed grateful for the trust reposed in us by the people. We have resolved to continue our audacious intervention to every sector of our economy, and I'm confident that this budget of continuity will propel Lagos State to the next fiscal level.
to keep Lagos moving.
The proposed monetary plan is with a capital to recurrent ratio of 55.45%.
For better Lagos.
Reacting to the presentation, the Speaker of the House of Assembly, Mudashiru Obasa, asked the governor to also address the rising level of poverty in the state in the new fiscal year.
The year 2023 budget of Lagos State should have more human face, be targeted at reducing poverty and improving the welfare of the residents of the state as part of the team's agenda that guides this administration. We will also, as usual, continue to give needed support to you, our dear Governor, as we all march ahead to solidify the achievement gained since 2019 when you took the reins of the government.
The bill awaits a second reading on the floor of the House. Abimbola Agbebi, TVC News, Lagos.
Okay, then. Okay, a quick report there. Mr. Commissioner, first of all, you said you don't trail anybody. So Lagos as a pace setter is sort of a 1.692, but it still is, even though that is still far ahead of anybody else, it is still a little less than the 1.75 billion of last year. Now, that's not very usual, so there must be a very good reason.
Oh, certainly. When we came last year with a 1.75 groundbreaking budget, we had informed Lagosians that we had seen what the future was going to look like. We're looking at seeing that there were going to be turbulence ahead. We knew that inflation was going to be extremely challenging, and therefore we had taken a strategic decision to load up our 2022 budget to bring forward certain projects and certain spend. Okay. So you will see that the deficit position for 2022 was high at 521. We are now seeing the benefits. I mean, if we didn't do those spends at those times, what you would have found is that the cost of those projects, the red line, the blue line, will have probably doubled, all right, given the scenarios globally on the inflation side and the FX situation, because a lot of these were FX denominated. So what you now find
Foreign exchange for whoever is not conversant with,
what-
because so many of our people don't deal with dollars. But,
Okay. So what you then find now, right, is that this budget is now contained a bit because we don't need to take on those huge, what I would call exceptional or extraordinary spend to protect the value of what we're trying to do. So we're just finishing some of those projects now. So we do not need to spike it to that level beyond where we need to also bring ourselves, given the discipline of the government of Lagos, within sustainability limits. So that's exactly why you see the small drop in the budget size.
Yes.
But a lot of those projects are already on stream because we had brought them forward into 2023.
and which, let it be said, points to a very good read of the situation, especially the very near future, which, as you've just explained, things have now been done that, if they had been left undone, would have been much more expensive than when they...
Significantly more
significantly expensive. I noticed that just looking at the budget, between capital and recurrent expenditure, we see a very healthy, given the reasoning that the governor gave, that it is always the objective of Lagos state government that there should be a significant, a significantly higher proportion of the budget going to capital expenditure. That's why we have 55%, and that's 932.7 billion, and 759 almost. It's just that you can't. When you're talking about billions, you can't be rounding off to 760. So let's keep it at 759.96 billion, which is 45% of the budget. So, and that the government mentioned, that the governor mentioned it occurred to me when he was speaking that, he's mentioning this. Does it mean we can't take it as of course that capital will always be higher, should always be higher? It means we can't take that as a given.
So it's not given, it just speaks to the discipline of the leadership of Lagos led by Mr. Governor. It's also a tradition by the leaders of Lagos that have preceded him. So there is a sense, a continuity of culture in the way we organize ourselves in Lagos. Lagos is that place where you need to continue to build infrastructure. You need to continue to give the people a chance to thrive. We have a very enterprising population. They need to make the investments that are required. And therefore, you cannot then put a lot of your spend on the recurring side. In addition to the fact that as you spend on the recurring side, you create value, significant amount of value for the people. Their land prices begin to rise. Their assets begin to gain in value as we do some of those strategic spends. It's also around the way we look at productivity. So if you see the big spend in the rail, for example, 2 rail lines are going to be commissioned shortly. They are lines that will move significant amount of people every month, probably about 32 million people monthly.
That is in addition to the 4 million the governor said is already being moved by land transportation.
Exactly. Right? Now, it will shorten their journey times, from 2.5 hours to 30 minutes. That takes up the productivity of our people. So it's a budget that centers around our people so that they are more productive, that their enterprise yield, and the framework and capacity which we bring to the table in the infrastructure we're undertaking, in the human development expenditures that we are undertaking, actually just helps the economy of Lagos do extremely well. So it is for that reason we always will put CapEx ahead of our recurrent expenditure, right, to basically increase
You just
value.
did another one, Mr. Commissioner.
Capital expenditure. Capital expenditure.
Because I know that this is perfectly understandable to all the economy reporters and banking reporters.
Capital expenditure.
So that's right, it's always like that. The other significant thing, first of all, Mr. Governor had explained that education is very, very important. In fact, that was right off the bat when he was speaking about education. Yep. And I just want to link education and the youth, because that's another thing Governor Sanwo-Olu was very careful to sort of point out if it wasn't visible already. The extent to which Lagos is going to empower and provide the appropriate environment for youths to not just develop, but also flourish. Maybe that's something that you'd like to sort of underline.
So it's a combination of things that enable our young people to flourish. So on one side, you look at the education budget, but beyond the education budget, you are thinking about what type of education at the various level. You need our people to be future ready. A bulk of our people, we seem to be scarce, right, when it comes to technical and vocational output. So we are strengthening that very significantly. You recall that we signed an agreement with Siemens at the recently concluded Egbeti, basically on vocational and technical education, right? So that we'll be doing quite a bit of, right? We're also introducing comprehensive schools, right, within our secondary school systems, where we train people on really vocational type stuff. You know, we realized that people were dropping out of school to go and try to learn, get a livelihood by learning some skills. And we are finding out that, look, it's better for us to bring those learnings within formal educational environments where we are sure of the quality of training. So we introduced, and we've done 12, we are headed to 50.
Exactly.
And what we are seeing is that we're seeing people come back to school. We're seeing people who the principal said were playing truancy all the time, beginning to concentrate. It means that we are striking a chord in the lives of the development of our young people, right? That is making them, attracting their interest. But beyond that also, the entire technology space is a space that is driven heavily by young people.
Indeed.
So we are supporting the tech hubs. We are giving vouchers that people could go there, right, using LSTF, and they can work from those tech hubs and really get support. But, you know, we're also doing a backbone infrastructure. We're laying 6,000 kilometers of broadband fiber duct infrastructure, with 3,000 in the first instance, for which we've gone, out of the 3,000, we're at about 2,900 now, right? Covering the entire Lagos, linking our schools, linking our hospitals, our public spaces, but also creating a highway for broadband, for industries to also...
Because I noticed the governor had pointed out that Lagos State itself was investing in laying cables. This was in addition to, I believe it was Google, he said. Yeah. There's a partnership with Google. Google is in plan. Lagos is going to be involved in that kind of a thing. But he says, beyond even that is probably what you're talking about, where Lagos itself will be spending, you know, its own.
So we are creating a smart city for Lagos. So we are investing in very huge type 3 data centers, right, as government ourselves. But because of what we are doing in conjunction with the private sector in the metropolitan of our fiber duct infrastructure, we are then attracting investment in hyperscale data centers. Google landed their Equano subsea because, I mean, if you bring that kind of capacity to the shores and you're unable to distribute into the city, then you will have high capacity internet by the water, but the people will not experience it. So this infrastructure will then facilitate that capacity in. And who are the guys that operate in this space? It's our young people. They are creating stuff on the technology side. We are home to a lot of very big startups, right? And we are making significant amount of progress in that space. But our young people are also in entertainment and the creative arts. So we announced the creative, African Film City, right, that will be building. We've committed about 100 hectares of land already, working with Del York, Storyland. If you realize, recently we went on a tour, right, of Atlanta, looking at the Trilight Studios, right, because there are people that have also shown significant interest there. What are we trying to do? We're trying to give our people space to express, to co-create with people from around the world. When you combine entertainment, you combine technology, then you see our youth population in that particular space. But beyond that, we're also making investments in sports, right? Where again
All
you
of this
see a
is
lot
still
of our young
connected
people.
with youth, yes.
We're doing 8 stadia simultaneously across Lagos. We are introducing sports actively back into our secondary schools. And if you see the new schools we are building, like in Elemoro, right, in Agege, and Vetland School, you see the pitches there and the quality. Again, is focused on our young people. So once you meet them in the place of sports, you meet them in the space of entertainment, you give them the right platform and institutions and structure around technology, then again you will have reached out. So you see,
because apart from sports and entertainment, as you've just said, you're also meeting them in the space of business enablement.
Exactly.
You know, I think the governor was saying that there had been instances where Lagos State government had, provided seed capital for some sort of ventures.
Yeah, so you see LSTF, which is the institution, right, that tends to stimulate employment, stimulates it quite a lot around small and micro, small and medium type businesses, right? So you see a lot of grants going in that direction to basically strengthen them. You see a lot of mentorship, and we're putting billions in that area just to support them. But it's not just the money. We're also giving them exposure. We're giving them mentorship, right? And that entire space is then beginning to see growth. So at Ehigbeti recently, when Mr. Governor was interviewing, right, a set of young people on stage, you really then see that Lagos indeed has that sprite in it, and Lagos has a lot of hope. And we are moving the needles a little bit forward and aggressive. And the young people are doing that with us. So we do not believe that the idea of growing Lagos or taking Lagos to destination rests just with government alone. Mm-hmm. It is that idea that we can collaborate with our citizens, we can collaborate with young people, we can listen to them, we can work with them, right? Sometimes they know their space better than we do.
Indeed.
We can give them space to express and then invest and take risks. So if you see, we set up last week, which is the Lagos Science Research and Innovation Council. It's purely driven by the private sector, but we put in seed money there to give startups, right, who they feel by themselves, the governing council feel is qualifying. Today, we are rated #1 ahead of Cape Town, ahead of Nairobi in terms of our startup support. Okay. And these are the kind of things that make that happen.
And I know you could go on quite significant amount of time waxing lyrical over these exciting projects, because that is exactly what they are. We started out, talking about this area because it's about modernity. Lagos is showing that it's entirely right up to the tape in terms of following our people. But food, the problem of food in Lagos, there was a time when, Lagosians were thinking that the previous administration entered into some sort of a rice agreement. The governor spoke about that. So it's not a comatose situation. It was pleasant to me to find out that from not knowing what exactly was going on, the governor was pointing out that there are efforts to sort of expand that area. Am I right?
Certainly. You realize that Lagos we have one of the biggest, in fact, the biggest food market in Africa. Right, we consume 50% of the meat produced in Nigeria. So it is Lagos. Yes, we do. Lagos, you and I. Right. So
I would have thought that you would have said Kaduna or Kano.
No, we do. We do.
And that is a fact.
No, that's fact.
50% of the beef eating in Nigeria
produced in Nigeria
are
consumed in Lagos.
There you go. That's one for the books.
But one interesting thing we learned out of COVID was that even though, today you seem to get food when you want it because you have a big market, but when the supply chain is disrupted, we saw in COVID that Lagos can quickly dry out of food, which was why in COVID we created safe corridors for food. But what are we doing in that area, right? We are training entrepreneurs, right? In our appeals program, for example, we are creating about 12,350 jobs. Directly and indirectly empowering about 17,000 others, right? In the aquaculture environment, in the poultry environment, in the meat production environment, we're doing all of that, but not just in the growing or the science of agriculture, but also in the business of agriculture. So they know how to manage the enterprise. Mr. Governor recently broke ground on what I would call the largest food system security and logistic base in Africa.
Okay, what's that about?
Okay, so it's like a big market, a wholesale market, right, that would take food coming into Lagos, right, from all across Nigeria and across West Africa, right? We're going to layer on top of it a commodities exchange. So people are able to say, this food we're receiving here, we know the source, we know where it's coming from, we're able to check for the quality, and we're able to stimulate production, for example, up country. So for example, if we get, let's say 32 tons of tomatoes from Kaduna, right, and it happens, like you already know, that a lot of goods coming into Lagos, almost 40% of it has perished.
Yes,
we can then tell Kaduna or Kano or wherever those productions are going on to say, look, you need to package it like this to come into Lagos. You need to come with refrigerated trucks so that they keep up. What that will mean, for example, is that we would save in a lot of our food. That will mean technically or theoretically that the food prices can go down, or the businesses here can do significantly better. So that is going to be a major game changer.
And the governor has just broken ground on that.
Oh, certainly.
When is it expected to, sort of come on stream?
We expect, we're working with the French, we're working with Nigerians with a lot of experience. We're working with FMDQ, right, to create the system that
what
make
is
it happen.
FMDQ?
FMDQ is our exchange. It's our exchange.
It's okay. I understand all these. So far, you're there to explain all these jargons for the rest of us.
No, that's
but,
fine. Right, to basically create a market system for us.
Okay.
Right, and to ensure that a lot of those trucks do not need to come into Lagos, because as you approach that market, you know how much you will sell what you have, and you can turn around quickly and go back. So the turnaround systems also go up. All of that is to really protect our food systems and give us very strong position from a resilience perspective as it has to do with our food security.
Commissioner Samuel Egube, let me take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll start looking at some hard matters. For instance, how the budget performed, the last budget performed. The governor has given us an inkling. It's high, but still not where they want to be. And we'll also look at how you intend to finance the new budget that has been laid. My guest is Samuel Egube, Lagos State Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget. It's against the backdrop of Mr. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu presenting the budget before the Lagos State House of Assembly yesterday. It's a big one, but still, for reasons that have been explained, it's slightly less at 1.692 than the 1.75 billion. But then there was some crafty forward-looking and reading the horizon and knowing how to make gains. So here we are, and we've been looking at other aspects. Now, I was going to ask him, one, the performance of the outgoing budget.
The outgoing budget has performed very well, but Lagos is a city for excellence, so we always want to be at the high 80s, 90 ranges. So as at September, we're at 74% in terms of performance of the 2022 budget. There's still a lot to go. We are going to close a bond, and that will help accelerate certain projects. So Mr. Governor and the entire cabinet is still extremely hopeful that we will get up to the 90 ranges. That's what we're working on.
This 90 range, is it a Sanwo-Olu dream, or is this the tradition through the administrations going back that they've been aiming that high?
So Mr. Governor has grown in an environment of high pressure. Don't forget he was in corporate finance in the banking industry. So he's a high pressure, high performance person. But Lagos also, when you look at the history of their leaders, all the way from Ashiwaju, to now, you will also see that they are high pressure, high performance people. So I think it's the tradition. And I guess that's why Lagos always comes back to vote for continuity and vote for this type of people, because what is in the family is in the family. Okay. Right? Now, so that's exactly what's going on.
So many exciting things, because I want to leave room for calls, because I know that there's so many people that want to ask questions about it or make their own commentary. How exactly is this 2023 budget going to be funded? More borrowing? People say we shouldn't be afraid of borrowing.
Okay, the first thing is that you should not be afraid of borrowing. I explained to you how borrowing, used creatively and responsibly, can create a lot of value for the future. And so it is irresponsible borrowing that can create a lot of challenges. So first, you shouldn't be afraid of borrowing. The second point about borrowing is that the structure of the borrowing matters also. So if I take 10 billion naira from you and I have to pay in 2 years, then it means I must pay 5 billion every year. But if I took 10 billion and I'm paying in 10 years, it means I only owe a debt service obligation theoretically of about 1 billion. Now, a lot of our borrowings are very long-term, and I don't know any state in Nigeria that borrows at the low interest at which we borrow. In fact, the rail transaction were single digits. Not even international banks could compete with that when you then put the foreign exchange exposure risk in addition to it. So we are borrowing in Naira, no foreign exchange exposure risk, and we have it long. So our sustainability is indeed very strong. It's the reason why Fitch rating agency reaffirmed our AAA risk rating to reaffirmed our AAA rating. Right, so that is exciting to us, and we guard sustainability like watchdogs. I mean, we don't want to vary it, so that's not a challenge. But this year we have called and reined in our level of borrowing. I mean, last year the deficit position was about 521. This year is just 350, because again we did quite a lot of significant things last year, knowing what the times will be like this year. So we'll be coming out again to do a bond, right, in 2023, about 150 billion of the 350 billion in deficit funding will come by way of bonds.
Because there are critics who are saying that, look, all this borrowing is against our great-great-grandchildren to come and pick up later on. Are such people, not knowledgeable enough about how these things work?
Well, if you are not knowledgeable, then it will certainly be a problem. But if I did not borrow to do what I did, on the rails, then today I won't be able to tell you that you will have rails running by the end of this year or first quarter next year. I won't be able to tell you that. And if you then want to do it, you remember we were supposed to do a metro rail a long time ago, right? And because we didn't do it, it's moved beyond our capacity to do it, right? Because the prices are no more the same, right? So there's a lot of advantages in taking, as long as you are taking it responsibly.
Okay, sort of strategic borrowing.
It has to be strategic. It has to be used for the things that can create value in the future. So by that next year, businesses have grown on the back of the infrastructure you've put on. They have employed people, right? A lot of those people now have children working, not depending on them, and it is stimulating the entire economy for
so
growth.
These great-great-grandchildren actually have value.
They have value that they would not have had.
They would not have, in addition to having to repay. So it's a different thing when the ground is clear, there's nothing on ground, and you have to be paying through your nose, so to speak. And it's a different thing when you have high value, is the sort of a very, very basic way in which I understand what you've just said.
Exactly.
Okay. Mazi Okorafor, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, our guest. Good morning, sir, our guest in the studio.
Okay,
I want to find out from our guest.
Samuel Egube.
There was during the meeting with the international community, the IMF and the World Bank.
Yes.
The managing director was complaining that most of the budget we do in Africa today, that it doesn't carry along the downtrodden, the poor people. Why is it so? Because when we talk about budget must carry everybody, but you see that the elites are 70% beneficiaries of any budget. That is why you see the level of poverty, as everybody knows very well, is going down. That is just increasing. Now, monitoring of our budget is always a major problem. You see, government will now come now today that this is what they are budgeted for. But before you talk to Robinson now, they will tell you there's no money to finance the project. But at the end of the day, you see people working in all those agencies coming to do what they say leftover sharing. But 40% of the jobs were not done. Why is it so? And I thank God for Lagos State. Like as you said, Lagos State is one of the highly rated state in Nigeria. Now, what are people going to do now? Now that flood is everywhere, do you still have that record that the budget of this present one, this 1-point-something trillion, will cover all these exits that Lagos, they should generate a lot of things, because I don't think Lagos should be going to Abuja every month to collect money.
No, they're not, but they still collect. They don't sneeze at it. They don't sneeze at it. They still collect. In fact, it's in 3 figures. So yeah, but first of all, if I were to extract the question from this submission, that how about the ordinary man? It's okay for all these special areas that you've emphasized, but the ordinary, so to speak, downtrodden that you're doing your best to lower the number of in Lagos?
So the Lagos state budget never comes into this stage without significant amount of engagement. So before the budget is crafted, even before it goes to cabinet, right, we have what we call the consultative forum, and we go to all the divisions of Lagos. We're talking to the people, the civil society group, the traditional institutions, the religious institutions. We were at Ikorodu, we were at Ekpe, we were at Lagos Island, we covered Badagry division. In fact, all of them we do cover. The reason why we do that is because the budget belongs to the people, really. And so you need to be able to take input. But it's not only us that do that. The House of Assembly members also have stakeholder engagement. It's the reason why the conversation between the executive and the House of Assembly is very crucial and critical. Comparing notes with what is coming from the people and ensuring a lot of those things are covered.
And it would
now, we do all of that. Now, so when I talk about human capital development, we are going to do something of about 550-something billion in that sector. It is not the rich that we are trying to develop. We are really trying to develop people who need it, people who need skills. We are engaging our vocational centers. We are training people in handiwork so that they participate in the economy.
That's what I was saying about, trying to lower the number of the desperately poor as much as possible. Now, Soji in Abuja, good morning to you, sir, and thank you for holding on.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead now, please.
All right, perfect. My name is Soji. I'm actually calling from Abuja. I have just 3 quick contributions to make. The first contribution I have to make this morning is one on property development in Lagos. Well, we understand that property development in Lagos is one of the epicenter in Nigeria, and if Lagos gets it right in the regulation, it will go a long way. I want to know which agencies is responsible in regulating property developers, because they enshrine some laws that cannot fit into the system. I actually stay in Scotland, and I just visited Abuja, and I'm leaving next week. And I bought a property, and when they gave me the condition, they said I have to pay for generator before I'm giving my key. I have to pay for electricity connection. There are some laws that it makes it so cumbersome that it just become a laughing stock. I went to the office to Meridian, and I told them that if you can convince me that I have to pay for generator or what if I just want to use solar for my house? I don't want to use your power. I have to pay for this before I connect. So I want to know, because if you are able to regulate, I don't want them to keep taking advantage of our weak system, or if we have regulators. And secondly, what I want to ask again, if you can have we can go online and do a search. We don't have to start going through a very tedious process. From our site online, we can just know which properties are genuine, which owners, and if you can do all that. And a very quick one is in terms of security of our funds. Sometimes we want to invest in Nigeria, and we just have some people just come and something just happen, and you can't get your fund back. And you don't have an organized body who can listen to you. We go to the Diaspora Commission, it's so cumbersome. So Lagos is more like one of the most, in fact, the most advanced state in Nigeria. So if we can get it right in Lagos, I believe a lot of states will take cue from there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Soji, for calling in. Soji's interest is what it is. Our guest, he's the Lagos State Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, but he's gone into a number of very specific areas. I suppose being in the cabinet, you would have heard your colleagues address these, and maybe you can be of assistance to him.
No, so Soji, it's nice that you are speaking of the challenges you are facing in Abuja. And as you speak like this, it's very important to everyone because they hear and they begin to respond. Some of those rules which you are speaking about sometimes are estate-specific rules, but some of them also are general physical planning rules. Now, when it comes to Lagos, we do not have those type of rules, even though it's always important that you comply with the rules before you go ahead. So when you're thinking about a development, it's nice to know. The agencies that are responsible for that in Lagos is largely the physical planning authorities who basically look at all of that. But the other agencies, when you talk about sound, silence, air pollution, and all of those things, you have agencies like LASEPA, which is the Lagos State Environmental Protection Agencies. In issues around land, you have the Ministry for Land that takes care of that. And we have a very young agency, which is what we call the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Agency, that comes in to just ensure some of those risks that you talked about are mitigated against. I mean, where you put in money to a developer and you cannot see the developer, you cannot see the agency. We want to be able to regulate that so that all developers are registered and are known by government. And if you are going to be paying money in advance, we want to be sure that there's some level of security or custodian service around those monies you pay upfront. So Lagos is quite developed and ahead in some of these areas.
He also asked about being able to, I think,
search for things remotely.
Thank you. He would be like
good. So your Lagos State kind of is quite advanced in that area. We have an eGIS system that we would. That by the first quarter, I mean, it's been completed largely, but by the first quarter of next year, you will be able to run some of those searches to just check out some of those things.
Mr. Commissioner, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to jump to Fidel, who has called in from Owerri. Good morning, Fidel in Owerri.
Thank you very much. And I want to appreciate what the commissioner is saying there. And to quickly add that one thing is to have a budget. Another thing is the implementation of such budget. I hope the Lagos State government has a machinery to monitor and ensure that the budget is appropriately implemented. Another thing, we have cases where budgets are often doctored and at times padded. There must be also a way of doing this so that the budget will really talk positively on the lives of the people whom the budget is actually meant for, and not a situation where it is overbloated and probably padded to satisfy the caprices, whims and caprices of those who may have the opportunity of being in the House of Assembly, commissioners like himself, and so on and so forth. But above all, what that is happening, the government should ensure that the common man in Lagos State does not suffer because people are now living in penury. There is need to protect them through economic situations that will not be too harsh to the living of the people. Thank you and God bless you. I'm Fidel Onyeneke.
Thank you very much for calling in, Mr. Onyeneke. I think you've spoken on this a bit. There's a policy almost resembling nobody being left behind in Lagos.
Certainly. We have what we call the asset register for the vulnerable, which we're building. I mean, we have criteria that we use to build that register. But beyond that, we have agencies like the Wealth Creation, Women Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Civic Engagement, SDG and Investment, who look a lot at our vulnerable to just ensure that no one is left behind. Traditionally also, the government also looks at all 377 wards, which is the smallest unit, to just ensure that there's at least a project, right, that is being done.
And there are 377 of them.
Yes, that is being done per ward. But it is the fascinating thing about Lagos. People are calling from Abuja, they are calling from Owerri, some might call from abroad. Everybody is interested in Lagos. Lagos has the single point where you have a lot of the headquarters of maybe 80% of the big corporation. We have the highest concentration of the cerebral minds in Lagos. Lagos cannot run without scrutiny, right?
Okay.
And that is why he should be rest assured that there can be nothing like doctoring. There's a lot of transparency and accountability. He get it that we have every now and then. We always go back to account there. The consultative fora I talked about, we always account. So there will be a lot of accountability. My ministry is responsible for monitoring and the implementation status of everything we do around the budget.
Okay.
Right. So all of that, he needs to be assured that we have that within, and then the people of Lagos are not quiet people. They speak up, they talk their mind, and they are monitoring also with us.
Now, you were saying earlier that Lagos is such as it is. People are calling in from, Abuja. People are calling in from Owerri. Well, you can add Finland to the list because Mr. Raji has just called in from Finland. Good morning to you, Mr. Raji.
Good morning, Mr. Yoli. I'm really enjoying your program, and my greetings to the commissioner.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
My question is so very simple. He has spoken fantastically. Economic planning commissioner. I want to ask him, those boys extorting.
I hope they won't say this is.
Only God knows what happened
we
there.
need to get him back. I like the question.
He didn't even start.
He didn't start.
He started up from those boys extorting.
Exactly. So
I was wondering.
It was something.
So sorry about that, Mr. Raji.
I hope he's able to call back.
I wonder what area of extortion there might be in Lagos. Just dipping my hand in a hat with blindly. Perhaps he's talking about motor garages or all those kind of things. I'm totally guessing. I can't read your mind, but you use the word extortion, extorting. Could you comment on whether or not there is extortion going on in garages and whether it is being addressed?
So he didn't quite mention garages.
No, he didn't.
But he talked about extortion.
Boys, and then extortion.
When you think about a city like Lagos, a mega city with over 25 million people, you get incidents of extortion from time to time. But extortion is not within our laws, neither within our guidelines. So
it's criminal.
Where you see extortion, things like bullying, sometimes you see some of those things just by the nature of it, that it's a big city. But they are not within what the society approves. So we must always continue to speak as we see things, we speak, and government rises up to that challenge to just ensure that sometimes we shut down schools because of incidents of bullying and all that.
For example,
all
these antisocial practices.
Yeah, sometimes we limit the operations of associations, right, which we feel are showing flares around things, around extortions. And one other thing we are going to do now is to actually advertise what the laws, the taxes and levies are, so that everybody knows what it is. So nobody comes and gives you a Sanwo-Olu levy, because they call these things all kinds of names. But I think the whole idea, when you look at the society, as you begin to lift people away from poverty, giving them skills to do work that is responsible, giving them education, giving them funding to help them start up their businesses, you then begin to see that it begins to moderate the behavior of our people. Right? As you begin to deploy all of those things and enforce also some of those laws, you begin to see that it acts as retardants to mold the behavior of our people. And I think that's what we want. We live together. We must build ourselves together. I mean, we're a city with over 300 tribes spoken by people who call themselves Lagosians. Every of these people calling from Finland, from Owerri, from Abuja, are Lagosians in their heart. Every Nigerian of significance has a piece of Lagos in his heart. And we are quite excited all the time when we hear feedback, we hear criticisms, we hear opinions, we hear contributions of how to raise Lagos
in that regard, the governor also, when he was delivering the budget speech yesterday, he reiterated an idea I first heard of from Senator Olu Tinubu. The special status for Lagos needs to still be center stage under consideration. There needs to be a consideration because Lagos is what it is. It is doing the the things that it is doing. I think the governor.
No, he mentioned that, and it's something I always say every time I have the opportunity. When Lagos prospers, Nigeria prospers. Nigeria has its best chance of succeeding in Lagos. When that airport road is turned to a 10-lane highway from 4, it is Nigeria, right, that gets the glory, even though Lagos is undertaking it. When we talk about the 10-lane Badagry highway, Lagos is undertaking it, but it's on the Nigerian West Africa trade corridor. When we facilitate $600 million in investment with our partners in the Lekki Deep Sea Port, it will increase the capacity of our shipping by 3 times what we have in Apapa is Nigeria. So it's the reason why we say, look, we must look at Lagos beyond being a state, but being one that takes on the burden of the Nigerian state. And we are happy and we feel honored to do that.
Okay. We're going to have to leave it there, Samuel. Mr. Samuel Egube, Lagos State Commissioner for Economic Planning and Development. I mean, almost as exciting as your governor when he was presenting it yesterday, because there was so much in that package.
You can't look at the future of Lagos and not be excited.
And not be excited.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Samuel, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much,
Indeed.
Yori.
So that's our program today. Please join us on Monday for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folare. Bye-bye for now.